Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, so everywhere we look, electric vehicles, right?
Mm-hmm.
New models seem to be hitting the market constantly.
All the time.
But, for a lot of us, the big question is still there. Is owning one really more convenient? And maybe more importantly, is it actually more cost-effective than, a standard combustion car?
Uh-huh.
We've done a deep dive into your sources to try and figure out the strategic ways you can actually maximize the value, the savings from owning an EV.
Right.
And honestly, some of the insights we're about to share, they might just challenge some common ideas,
Mm-hmm.
especially about that long-term convenience and cost.
Yeah, I think what's really striking, and maybe the biggest thing people worry about first, is that initial depreciation cliff, as they call it.
Right, the value dropping.
Exactly. Our deep dive showed that an EV can lose almost half its value. We're talking a drop of like 40–50% in just the first 3 years.
Wow, that's huge.
It is. It's way more than the, say, 30% you might see with traditional cars. And this isn't just, a number on a page. It kind of changes how you have to think about investing in an EV.
Okay.
So what's fascinating here is if that's true, how on earth do electric cars end up being the more economical choice down the line? That's
Yeah.
really the core question our deep dive set out to answer.
Okay, let's unpack this because, yeah, that 40–50% drop sounds pretty daunting right at the start.
It does.
Yet the sources we looked at, they really seem to push for holding onto your EV for longer, like ideally 6 to 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
which honestly in the car world, especially with tech moving so fast, that sounds like a really long time.
It's just shift, definitely.
Yeah. So for someone who maybe likes to upgrade every few years, isn't that a massive change in how you approach it? Why is holding it that long so crucial for the finances to make sense?
Well, it's precisely because that big hit you take on depreciation up front, it gets balanced out progressively by the much lower running costs. Our research was pretty clear on this. Maintenance costs, especially for like city electric cars, they're about 30–35% less than the combustion engine ones.
30 to 35%, that's significant.
It adds up. And then there's the fuel, right? Electricity for charging is, generally speaking, way more economical than buying petrol or diesel.
Right.
So these aren't just tiny savings here and there. They really accumulate over those years. And that's what makes owning it longer term just, well, much more advantageous financially.
So it feels like that longer commitment is really banking on those lower day-to-day costs paying off over time.
Exactly.
And speaking of the car's value, what about the kind of the heart of the EV? Right. The most vital part and often the most expensive bit, the battery.
Yeah, the battery's key.
What did our deep dive find about keeping that battery healthy, extending its life? Because that must impact the car's value too, right?
Oh, absolutely. And we found some really concrete practical tips for battery life.
Okay, like what?
So, first off, how you charge it matters. Conscious charging, they call it. For just daily driving, the advice is to try and keep the battery charge somewhere between 20% and 80%.
20 to 80. Not filling it up every night?
Not unless you need to. Those full 100% charges, really save those only for when you're doing a long journey.
Interesting. Okay.
Second, heat. Managing heat is pretty vital. Protecting the battery from getting too hot, so parking in the shade or in a garage if possible. It helps stop the cells aging too quickly.
Makes sense. Simple things.
Yeah, but effective. And finally, something maybe people don't think about as much, regular software updates.
Software updates for the battery.
Well, for the whole car system, yeah.
Yeah.
Manufacturers often push out optimizations for like battery efficiency, driving functions, stuff like that. So keeping your car's software up to date is actually surprisingly important for battery health too.
Huh. Okay, so we've got smarter charging, keeping it cool, keeping the software current. That takes care of the battery itself. But our deep dive also suggested that the next big way to boost efficiency and maybe longevity isn't just about the hardware. It's actually about how you drive the car.
Absolutely. How you drive makes a huge difference.
Tell us more about that. What kind of driving habits?
So one of the really key findings was about regenerative braking.
Ah, yes, where the car puts energy back when you slow down.
Exactly. Driving smoothly, anticipating stops, that lets the car recover a pretty significant amount of energy, which, boosts your range, your efficiency.
Right.
But it also dramatically reduces wear and tear on your actual brakes over time.
So saves money on brake pads too.
Definitely. And what's kind of fascinating, and actually something I've noticed myself, is that some drivers find the act of recovering that energy.
Oh, yeah.
It's surprisingly satisfying.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
How so?
Well, instead of just losing that energy to heat like in a normal car, you feel it going back into the battery. Every time I feel that happening, honestly, I feel a little bit regenerated myself. It makes driving, especially in traffic, feel less wasteful, more efficient. It genuinely changes the experience.
Huh. That's a brilliant point. Like, you're actively participating in making the car more efficient, not just driving it. Turning stop-start traffic from just annoying into, like, an optimization game.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the driving style. But beyond the driving and the charging, where else did the sources point to savings or perks? Things maybe a new EV owner wouldn't immediately think about.
Oh, yeah, there are definitely some significant perks that add up, depending on where you live, of course.
Like what?
Well, in many regions, the road tax, sometimes CANBALO or vehicle excise duty, it's often reduced for electric cars. Sometimes it's even completely exempt.
Zero road tax, that's an immediate saving.
Right there, yeah. And then beyond that, you often get practical perks in cities, things like access to restricted traffic zones, ZTLs.
Oh, those city center zones, yeah.
Exactly. Access to those, sometimes use of special bus or taxi lanes, and even discounted or completely free parking in many towns and cities.
Wow, free parking and getting into restricted zones? That's not just pocket change, that's a massive daily convenience, especially if you live or work in a city.
Huge difference. It can add up to really substantial daily savings and just makes urban driving much, much less hassle.
Okay, so these are real, tangible benefits you feel pretty quickly.
Hmm.
But what about the sort of bigger picture? Thinking about longer journeys, infrastructure. What guidance did our deep dive offer on charging strategy and planning for those, road trips?
Yeah, good question. For longer trips, the main advice is pretty straightforward. Use mapping apps, plan ahead, locate the charging stations along your route before you actually set off.
Preparation is key.
Absolutely. And while those super fast chargers are incredibly convenient when you're in a hurry,
Yeah, the ones that charge really quickly.
those ones, the research generally advises using them only when you really need to, not like for every charge.
Why is that?
Frequent use of very high-speed charging can generate more heat in the battery, and as we said, heat isn't great for long-term battery health. It can impact its overall longevity.
Got it. So fast charging is great for occasional use, but maybe not the everyday go-to
Yeah.
if you want the battery to last as long as possible.
Exactly. And this all feeds back into the overarching strategy, really reinforcing that earlier point we made. The sources suggest you should aim to keep your EV for at least 10 years, if you can.
10 years. Back to that long-term view.
Yeah. To properly amortize that higher initial cost and really truly benefit from all those savings, the lower running costs, the maintenance, the tax breaks, the perks, it all comes together over that longer period.
Okay. So let me try and summarize our deep dive then.
Yeah.
It sounds like, yes, the initial cost and that pretty steep depreciation for an electric car might look a bit scary at first glance.
It can seem that way.
But what our sources clearly show is that if you approach it strategically, think long-term ownership, be smart about charging, keep up with maintenance, and really leverage all those incentives and perks that are available,
Mm-hmm.
then an EV absolutely can become the more cost-effective choice over time, and maybe even more convenient, considering things like ZTL access and parking.
That's the picture that emerges.
It really shifts the focus from just the sticker price to the total cost of owning the car over its life, understanding how an electric car actually pays you back in a way.
Which, it raises a pretty interesting question, I think, in this market that's changing so fast.
Yeah,
Is the real value of a car maybe less about what you pay for it up front and more about how cleverly you manage its whole life cycle?
that's a great point.
It really makes you think about how technology keeps changing the game, redefining what we even mean by convenience or cost-effective when it comes to cars.
Absolutely fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
A completely different way to think about car ownership, really. Well, if you, listening, found these insights helpful, definitely give this deep dive a like. And make sure you subscribe to the channel. We'll have more explorations into what truly matters in this, well, rapidly changing world of ours.